The American Cancer Society launches innovative, high-impact research to find more and better treatments, currently funding over $50 million in colorectal cancer research through 67 active grants. So I am super excited and honored to have one of our amazing researchers with us today. It's my honor and privilege to introduce to you Dr. Caroline She is the principal scientist in population science for the American Cancer Society. She studies how specific foods have a relationship with early onset colorectal cancer. She investigates the role of gut and oral microbiome in colorectal cancer development and progression. And she also leads the new CPS3 gut and oral biome sub-study. Some of you on this call may even be a part of that study. So welcome, Dr. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Tiffany, for having me today. It's really great to be here.
Excellent. Well, I know I am in awe of the work that our researchers do and the brilliant ideas that you're able to pursue. And I know our audience today and myself are super excited to hear about your work and so much of what is going on. So I'm going to turn things over to you. And don't forget, those of you that are listening today, to drop your questions in the Q&A box, and we'll get to as many of those as possible. Dr.
Great. Thanks again, Tiffany, for inviting me to this call today. So I'm just going to briefly talk about colorectal cancer research. And we've certainly come a long way over the last several decades in terms of understanding what causes it, how we can detect it, and how we can treat it. I would say that much of the research really began around the 1970s or so, and that has led us to where we are today. And ACS has certainly played a pivotal role in this, first through our cancer prevention studies, which are large nationwide population studies. The first one, CPS1, started in 1959. Then the second, CPS2, began in 1982. And now we are in our third cohort, CPS3, which began in 2006. ACS has also contributed to colorectal cancer detection by creating their first screening guidelines in 1980. And we've continued to update those over the years as well. But even with all of these accomplishments, we still unfortunately don't know everything about colorectal cancer. Next slide, please. So at the beginning of this month, ACS released the latest colorectal cancer facts and figures, which is a report on colorectal cancer trends in the U.S., and it's also available on our cancer.org website. But this report has shown that although the overall number of new colorectal cancer cases and deaths is decreasing, when we really break down those numbers, colorectal cancer had among people younger than 50 years of age has actually been increasing since around 2011, which is pretty concerning. Overall, there are still too many people being affected by colorectal cancer. It's estimated that more than 150,000 people will be diagnosed this year, and more than 50,000 people will die from colorectal cancer this year. In 2019, 1 in 5 people diagnosed with colorectal cancer were younger than 55 years of age. And this is actually about double what it used to be in 1995. Also in 2019, 3 out of 5 people diagnosed with colorectal cancer were diagnosed with advanced or late stage colorectal cancer. So these numbers, and especially the trend that we're seeing among younger populations, are really concerning because, it's still, in my opinion, one too many people being affected by colorectal cancer. Next slide, please. So there's still a lot of work that needs to be done so that we are able to better prevent colorectal cancer, detect it earlier, successfully treat more people, and also improve the lives of colorectal cancer survivors. And this is really only possible at ACS because of the contributions from various donors and supporters, our fundraisers, and of course, our volunteers. To date, ACS has awarded about 68 grants in total to external researchers specifically for colorectal cancer. And within our internal population science research department, we are currently conducting CPS-3, which includes over 300,000 participants. And it's really a tremendous source of valuable data that allows us to study many different factors. So things such as smoking, alcohol, body weight, physical activity, diet, various things in the environment, and also screening. And we're studying how all of these things may be related to the risk of getting and surviving colorectal cancer. Within CPS-3, we are also conducting a new sub-study called the Gut and Oral Microbiome Sub-Study, which is collecting 10,000 paired saliva and stool samples from participants so that we can understand how bacteria in our gut and in our mouth may be related to colorectal cancer. But as I mentioned, there's still a lot of work that we need to do in the future. Colorectal cancer is one of the most preventable cancers, but yet we're seeing more cases among younger populations. So we need to figure out why is this happening and determine whether there are different risk factors for early onset colorectal cancer. We also need to improve colorectal cancer screening rates. Hopefully everyone knows that our current recommendation is to begin screening at age 45. But unfortunately, there are still many individuals and also healthcare professionals who are unaware of this. We also need to identify and address barriers to colorectal cancer screening that affect different groups of people. Colonoscopy is a great and effective screening procedure because it not only checks to see if someone has colorectal cancer, but it can also prevent colorectal cancer because it removes polyps from the colon. And those polyps are what can potentially become cancer later on. But, while colonoscopies are extremely effective, there are still other tests. There are stool-based tests. You may have heard of Cologuard. And these tests may actually be easier or more accessible for some individuals, especially those with limited access to centers that provide colonoscopy. So I always like to say any test is better than no test, but there are still many people who do not get any type of colorectal cancer screening test or procedure. So, that's something else that we need to improve. So I'll just stop here for now, but happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thanks so much.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dr. It is just such amazing information and truly amazing how your work is going to be saving lives in the future. So considering everyone that's on this call is a supporter of the American Cancer Society, investing their dollars into the mission, can you tell us a little bit about what the funds mean to you and your work?
Of course, yeah. So basically, the research that we conduct in the population science department is completely dependent on the support of donors, fundraisers, volunteers, and other partnerships. Most of the participants in all of our cancer prevention studies were actually recruited through the help of tens of thousands of volunteers at Relay for Life events. It really takes a lot of resources to maintain our current CPS-3 cohort so that we can continue collecting more information from all of our participants. And really, the support that we receive is really the only way that we are able to conduct new and innovative research like the gut and oral microbiome study, which has only been possible because of the donations and support that we've received. So we're very grateful.
Absolutely. Thank you. So can you tell us a little bit about why you chose cancer research as your area of focus?
Sure. Yeah, I actually first became interested in colorectal cancer when I learned that it was one of the most preventable cancers. At that time, it was really hard for me to understand that, and it also made me question, well, then why are people still getting it? Of course, I also unfortunately know many people and families who have been affected by colorectal cancer. So my background is in nutrition. So I started off by studying how diet is related to colorectal cancer. But now I focus on the microbiome because it's potentially related to many, many different factors, including diet, but also other things like physical activity, various things in the environment, other lifestyle behaviors. So the reason why I'm still studying colorectal cancer today is because I really truly think that one day we will be able to prevent anyone else from getting colorectal cancer.
Absolutely. Such a great reason. And you are getting so much love and appreciation in the chat box and lots of questions coming in. So we'll get to a few more here. How long have you been with the American Cancer Society?
I've been here a little over 5 years now, about 5.5 years. Yeah.
Excellent. So the next question is there an age where you should stop getting your colonoscopy?
Yeah, that's a great question. If an individual is at average risk of colorectal cancer, really around, as a person gets older in their late 70s and 80s, that's when you should really talk to your physician about whether or not you need more colorectal cancer screenings, or maybe you can reduce the frequency. It really all depends on, what has happened in your previous colorectal cancer screening. So, for example, if they've always found a lot of polyps, then maybe it is recommended that you continue getting these screenings. But if you've had no polyps, for all of your colonoscopies, and your doctor thinks that, oh, well, I think you don't need them for another 10 years or longer, then maybe when you get to age 80 or so, maybe it's okay to cut back on the frequency even more. But yeah, it really depends on each individual.
Very good. That makes sense. And just one more reminder, what is the age of the recommended guidelines for screening to begin?
Right now, the age is 45. It used to be 50 or older, but I will say there is a big but. It just really depends on your level of risk. And that's really something that you can only determine by talking to your doctor. So I really recommend everyone to reach out to their doctor and discuss what's best for them.